Guys, in this video, we're going to cover segmentation and micro-segmentation. This is a topic that is top of mind for a lot of network professionals, especially since this is the way they have their networks designed within a traditional data center. So they want to carry those same kind of principles of protection, the same kinds of network protection principles that have protected their data centers over the course of their career, right? So what is segmentation really within Microsoft's framework, within the Azure data center? So we're going away from traditional constructs like VLANs and things like that, and we're moving toward a software-defined networking. And within software-defined networking, within the Azure world, we have this concept known as virtual networks. So what a virtual network is, think of it as a network that can consist of multiple subnets. And on every subnet, really, you can add a firewall. So a virtual network can contain like 20, 30 subnets. Because of software-defined networking, all those subnets can communicate with each other. You don't have to particularly create routing rules or any of those things. There are no VLANs, again. But more importantly, if you want to break up within a virtual network certain workloads and say these workloads can only communicate with each other or with certain workloads on certain ports, you can do that using NSGs, and it works on the 5-tuple rule base, right? So it's not a firewall, it's a 5-tuple rule base, like a simple access list you'd put on a switch or on a router. Not a firewall, it's not stateful. So what this is basically, think of it as IP address source and destination, port source and destination, and protocol. So all those 5 things are taken into consideration when you're creating a network security group. Now, what we want to offer is also the micro-segmentation. So that's segmentation within segmentation. So when you look at the previous picture or slide, we were looking at things based on subnet. Now we're going to block things based on workload within the subnet itself. So segmentation within segmentation, what we call in the industry micro-segmentation. So even though I'm in the same subnet, the traditional rules of networking dictate that if I'm in the same subnet, I should have unfettered communication with anything within my subnet, because that's the way networking works. However, because of the way application security groups work, we can within a subnet block certain workloads from communicating with others. So think of it this way. Even though I'm on the same 10.0.0/24 network, the web servers will not be able to communicate with the database servers. They'll only be able to communicate with the app servers. The app servers can only communicate with the database servers. This makes that line of delineation. The way this works is we apply an application security group, again, to the network security group. It's more like a tag, think of it that way. And that's how this really functions. So when we go to the demo, you'll see it more clearly. But let's go to the demo and take a look at this. All right, so to look at any of the network security groups or application security groups, there are 2 ways to do this. So let's go to virtual machines, and then let's click on one of these machines. So I'm going to click on VM Spoke 1. This is a virtual machine in Spoke 1. And it says I just turned this machine on, so it's not ready. But let's go and look at networking here. And when you look at the networking part of it, so if it says here, we got network security group, we have this network security group that's attached to this interface here, and these are the different ports, those 5 tuples I was talking about. So we're allowing VNet inbound, so everything from the VNet inbound, any, and we're, of course, for the load balancer, this is if you had a load balancer in your virtual network to load balance different applications. This is where this is the port that's required for that load balancer to work. And finally, this is deny all inbound. So this is finally your catch-all, right? This is traditional, the way all firewall rules or access lists are all processed top-down. So the last one would be processed with deny all. The next one we'll look at is application security groups. So here we have an application security group ASG1 that is attached to this VM. So let's go and configure another application security group and attach it. So you can search for application security groups up here in the search bar, or since I've already done that before, it populates for me. So I can create a new one here. So let's go ahead and create, and I choose a resource group. Again, resource groups are permission control, so you can control who has permissions to certain resources based on the resource group you give it permission to. So VM dash spoke So I'm creating a new service application security group here. I'm going to hit review and create. As you can see, there's not much to it. What we're doing here is really creating a tag, if you will, and this tag then gets assigned to a machine, and then the network security group can control access to this machine based on tag and also ports and things like that. So let's look at how that's configured. So go here. Let's go back to VM spoke 1. I'll go back into networking, so my machine's ready now. And I'll go here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a new inbound rule. Let me just go ahead and add. Let's go ahead and add an inbound rule here. So I'm going to hit sources any, okay? Or I can do application security group, and I can say coming from the Linux application security group, and I can choose sources here, right? Ports, or I can choose everything. Star is everything, obviously, but I can choose ports. If I wanted to say my application servers can only communicate with my database servers on port 5656, this is where I'd enter that information here. So I'm here, what I'm saying is I'm looking at a source, because what I'm saying is this is the tag that I'm looking, that'll be attached to the machine. This is the destination of that machine here. I'm going to put a applicant security group as well. And here I'm going to choose the new one I just created, ASGVM1 service. So here you can choose different kinds of services that are already pre-mapped out. Okay, or you could just leave this as blank or everything. And then you can choose a protocol. Again, this is like the 5 tuple we talked about. And obviously then the deny rule, right? You can say allow or deny. Priority, the lower the number, the higher the priority. So it's inverse. This is like a lot of firewalls out there. You know, the lower the number, the higher the priority. So here I can say this is a deny all rule, and I'm going to hit add. Now what's going to happen is when I add this rule, you'll see it'll populate here. Let's give it a second. And what that means here, it'll be added to the top. So that's the first rule that gets processed, and after that rule is processed here, anything that's coming from a source group Linux ASG to the ASG VM spoke 1 will not get will be denied, will not be allowed to communicate. All right, so now let's go ahead and change our application security groups. Let's click on configure the application security groups. I'm going to change this one. I'm going to remove this one. You can have multiple, but I'm going to just choose the ASG VM spoke 1 just to keep it simple. And I'm going to update this configuration. So what that's going to mean now, if I go to my Linux machine here, go to virtual machines here, and I go to Linux 1, and I look at networking, I look at the application security group on that machine, I'll see it's Linux ASG1 here. So I don't really need to put any rules here, outbound rules or anything associated with Linux ASG1. As long as I have a rule on the destination machine, it should be sufficient. So now let's RDP to my VM and take a look at that. Bring the screen over, give me a second. There it is. So I'm just logging in real quick into Christie's machine here. From Christie's machine, I'm going to log into my Linux 1 machine, just 10.11.0.5. I can show you that guy in a second. I wonder if I typed that incorrectly. There it is. All right, so let's see if we can ping 10.11.0.4. And I can't ping it, obviously, because I have that ASG rule there. So I've got pings transmitted, 0 received, 100% packet loss. But obviously I'm getting to this Linux box, right? So if I do ifconfig on this machine here, this is 10.11.0.5. And if I do here, cmd, ipconfig, 10.11.0.4, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10.11.0.5, 10 I see here this is 10.11.0.4. So obviously there's communication taking place one way, right? So I can obviously putty from this machine to this machine. But from this machine, from Linux ASG, I cannot communicate back to 11.04 because I'm denying everything. So let's go ahead and remove the application security group rule on VM spoke 1, okay? And then let's see what the situation is then, or the result of the ping. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this one here, this deny rule that we just added here with the application security group. Now remember, they're both 11.0.4, 11.0.5. They're both in the same subnet, but because of the application security group, you have that micro-segmentation concept. So we're not allowing the communication to take place over there. So now let's look at this from here and give that a few seconds. And we'll start pinging it. By the time, it should take a few seconds. And what we should see here is now the pings will start working once that rule is actually applied. So it usually takes a few seconds for that rule to get applied. And once it's done, deleted the security rule, once it actually goes through the system, then it should start working automatically. Just give that another few seconds. So it just took a little while, but there it's pinging back again. And so what you'll see, so that's the benefit of that, right? So if let's go back in there again, and let's add that rule back again. Same rule we added last time. So add inbound rule. We'll do source, application security group, Linux ASG, all of them, destination. We'll make it application security group again. Here we'll do ASG VM spoke 1, service, custom leave that, destination port, we'll make it star again, deny, we'll call this deny-all, then add that, and we'll wait for a second. This should add. Now, every time you add rules or take rules off, it really does take a couple of seconds for those rules to get applied. So be a little patient. I'm sometimes impatient and I start like fumbling around thinking, oh, what went wrong? But you just give it a few seconds. It usually just takes, after it's created, it actually takes a while to get applied to the route tables and things like that, and then it'll start working. So just give this a couple minutes and then we should see this working. So the pings are still working, but then all of a sudden we should see that scroll stop, and then we know for sure that it's broken, even though they're on the same subnet. So you're looking here, this is 11.0.4, and the other one is 11.0.5. We saw up here earlier. IP address was 11.0.5. It's like watching paint dry. You just gotta wait for it to happen, and then that's already. I think it's getting close. It's slowing down. You can see the time to live is increasing, and I think there it is. So it's not going past 126. It's stuck at 126. So you can tell that the pings have stopped here. We're having some loss because the rule got applied. So if I hit Control C, and I hit the up arrow key again, enter, as you can see, the pings have stopped. So this is segmentation and micro-segmentation within Azure, Microsoft Azure networking. Hope you guys find this video helpful. Thanks for watching.